To about 700 or 800 students, and a children's author who is in town in Mississippi for the Mississippi Book Festival, which is this weekend down on the Capitol grounds. And the reason I mention that is because it's so important that we spend more time talking about the importance of reading. The importance of reading. You know, when I was growing up, what was important to me was dribbling that basketball. And that is important, but I figured out pretty early on that basketball wasn't going to help me make a living. That basketball wasn't going to help me provide for my family. Learning to read and be successful in school, that's what's going to get you to help you accomplish your dream. Doesn't mean you can't still dribble that basketball as often as you can and shoot that basketball and play and have fun, and maybe one of you or two of you or three of you even may get a chance to earn a scholarship by playing basketball and going on to college. But at the end of the day, the lessons that you're learning here in this library and in your classrooms are the lessons that are very important. So with that, I'm going to read The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton. Has anybody in here already read this book? Has everybody in here read this book? Most everybody. Awesome. Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see our great-great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren living in her." A little house way out in the country. That kind of describes most of Mississippi, doesn't it? Most of Mississippi. The little house was very happy as she sat on the hill and watched the countryside around her. She watched the sun rise in the morning, and she watched the sun set in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before, but the little house stayed just the same. In the night, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon, then back again to a thin old moon. And when there was no moon, she watched the stars. Way off in the distance, she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. Time passed quickly for the little house as she watched the countryside slowly change with the seasons. In the spring, when the days grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green. She watched the buds on the trees swell and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children playing in the brook. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves, and the white daisies cover the hill. She watched the gardens grow, and she watched the apples turn red and ripen. She watched the children swimming in the pool. Did anybody here think summer lasted too long this year? Or do you think it went by way fast? Way fast. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked. She watched the children going back to school. In the winter, when the nights were long and the days short and the countryside covered with snow, she watched the children coasting and skating. Year followed year. The apple trees grew old and new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city. And now at night, the lights of the city seem brighter and closer. Has anybody in here ever seen snow? Oh yeah, I forget. Y'all live up here in North Mississippi. Down there in Central Mississippi, we don't get much snow. One day, the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon, there were more of them on the road and fewer carriages pulled by horses. Pretty soon, along came surveyors and surveyed a line in front of the little house. Pretty soon, along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill covered with daisies. Then some trucks came and dumped big stones on the road. Then some trucks with little stones. Then some trucks with tar and sand. And finally a steamroller came and rolled it all smooth and the road was done. Now the little house watched the trucks and the automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster now than before. See all those new houses being built up along the road? More roads were made and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses, apartment houses and tenement houses, schools, stores, and garages spread over the land and crowded around the little house. No one wanted to live in her and take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver, so she just stayed there and watched. Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the street lights shone all night. This must be living in the city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. Pretty soon there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. They went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy, and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Pretty soon, there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed about the same. Everybody see the train that they built on top of the little house? Pretty soon, there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house. She couldn't see it, but she could feel and hear it. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried by without a glance. Pretty soon, they tore down the apartment houses and the tenement houses around the little house and started digging big cellars, one on each side. The steam shovels dug down 3 stories on one side and 4 stories on the other side. Pretty soon, they started building up. They built up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. Now, the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all because the lights of the city were too bright. She didn't like living in the city. At night she used to dream of the country and the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty. Her windows were broken and her shutters hung crookedly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. There was something about the little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "That little house looks just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was way out in the country on a hill covered with daisies and apple trees growing around." They found out it was the very same house, so they went to the movers to see if the little house could be moved. The movers looked the little house all over and said, "Sure, this house is as good as ever. She's built so well we could move her anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and put her on wheels. Traffic was held for hours as they slowly moved her out of the city. At first, the little house was frightening, but after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road, and they rolled along the little roads until they were way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard the birds singing, she didn't feel sad anymore. They went along and along, but they couldn't seem to find just the right place. They tried the little house here and they tried her there. Finally, they saw a little hill in the middle of a field, and apple trees growing around. There, said the great-great-granddaughter, that's just the place. Yes, it is, said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. Is pink anyone's favorite color? Awesome. A lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again, she could watch the sun and moon and stars. Once again, she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again, she was lived in and taken care of. Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. The end. So did everybody enjoy that book?
Yes, sir.
There are an awful lot of lessons we learned in that book. But the lesson that I would take from that is, in today's society, so many people always think that the grass is greener on the other side of the pasture. It's just natural, it's human nature. But what we know, and what I hope you know, is how fortunate we are as Mississippians to grow up in small communities like Baldwyn, where we not only learn to read and write, we learn the values that we learn here in small Mississippi towns. And that's more than anything else, the lesson that I learned from that story is that we should all be thankful for having the opportunity to grow up in a great community like you grow up in, go to a great school like you go to have great teachers like you have. And so what I would encourage you to do, whether it's later today in school or tonight at the football game or around town when you run into some of your leaders, thank them for what they've done to give you a chance to be successful in life. And that's really what it's all about, is having that opportunity for success. And so with that, if it's okay with y'all, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to give the students an opportunity to ask questions. It's always dangerous when I do that, but it's always probably the most fun. So does anybody have an interesting question that they have for your Lieutenant Governor? What is your name? Trinity? Awesome, Trinity. So Trinity's question is, what is it like to be Lieutenant Governor? Well, Trinity, it's
The truth. The truth, Governor.
It's really gratifying to get to work with people like Representative Turner and Senator McMahan. The reality is that being Lieutenant Governor is an awesome responsibility, but the way I look at it, with that awesome responsibility comes an awesome opportunity. Because I get to get up every single morning and go to work knowing that I have an opportunity to positively impact the lives of nearly 3 million Mississippians who elected me to this office. And so, it's like any other job. It has good days and bad days. It's like any other job, and then it has its advantages and its disadvantages. And but at the end of the day, it's exceptionally rewarding to know that I have a chance in some small way to positively impact the lives of 3 million Mississippians. And just to give you an example, today I have the chance to sit in front of all of you fourth graders, and hopefully you'll take something positive away from this experience. And if even just one of you takes something positive away from this experience, it is well worth my time. And so that's a great question. Thank you for asking. What is your name? Ames. Okay. So Ames asked, where did I grow up? So I grew up in what was then a little small community named Florence, Mississippi. Now, not Florence, Alabama, which is fairly closer to here than Florence, Mississippi. Florence, Mississippi is just about 10 or 15 miles southeast of our capital city, Jackson. It's had at that time just a school. It's a little bit bigger than the school that you're going to. In my graduating class at the time, we had 93 kids graduating. So it's a little bit bigger, but not a lot bigger than what you're going to right here in Baldwyn. Yes, ma'am. What's your name? Riley. Okay. Great question. Do I feel scared when I come to schools and talk to people? When I look back on my college career, I can't help but laugh. I was very fortunate that I went to undergrad at Millsaps College in Jackson, and I did pretty well in school. My strengths were math and science, and so I look back on my college career, and I made mostly A's. I'm sure all of y'all make mostly A's, but I made almost all A's when I was in college. One of the few B's that I made was in a course called public speaking. And so as I look back, about all I do now is public speaking. And so when I first started doing it, I did get scared. I got nervous. I wasn't very good at it. I'm still not very good at it, but I've gotten to a point now, having been in public office for almost 13 years, I've spoken in lots and lots of schools all around the state, and so I don't get nearly as scared now as I once did. But I got to tell you, it is not unnatural that if your teacher asks you to speak in front of the classroom, for you to get a little bit nervous, for you to get a little bit scared. And quite honestly, it's really that's somewhat of a metaphor for life. You know, anytime you're trying to do something that you've never done before, or anytime that you're trying to do something that you hadn't been successful doing before, you might be a little bit nervous. You might be a little bit scared. But don't let that being a little nervous or a little bit scared hold you back. What I want you to know today is, even if you're a little nervous, even if you're a little bit scared, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. And so that's a very important lesson today, is even when you get that little feeling of queasiness, even when you get just a little bit scared, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. When I was playing basketball in high school and college, when I was on the free throw line with a chance to win the game, I got a little bit nervous and a little bit scared too. But if you practice and you just go do what you did in practice and ignore all of the outside naysayers, you can accomplish anything you want. You can sit there and knock down that free throw. Yes, sir. What's your name? Dolly.
Do you have to wear suits every day?
Dolly wants to know if I have to wear suits every day. I didn't wear a tie today. I guess I'm underdressed, but I don't wear a suit every day. But if we are in the Capitol, my main job as Lieutenant Governor is to preside over the Mississippi State Senate. And we do have a dress code in the Mississippi State Senate where we do have to wear coats and ties at all times when we're on the floor in the Mississippi Capitol. But when I get to do what I love to do, which are things like today, get out and speak to groups like each of you and encourage you, then I don't have to wear a tie every day. And so that's what I really like. Yes, sir. What's your name? Darrell? Terrell. Okay.
Who do you work for?
Who do I work for? I work for you. I work for your moms and dads and your grandmoms and your granddads. My bosses are the voters of the state of Mississippi. So the way I got my job is I ran for office. So just like your city alderman or your mayor or your representative or your senator or your sheriff or your tax assessor collector, I ran for office, and I ran all over the state of Mississippi. And so my bosses are you and your parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and everyone else. So. Yes, ma'am. What's your name? Madison. Madison wants to know if I liked school. Senator McMahan, I have to answer this one honestly too.
I think you should, Governor.
I really enjoyed 7th period when I was in high school. Y'all know what 7th period was? That's when we started basketball practice. No, I actually, I didn't love school, but I didn't dislike school either. So it was just kind of I went and tried to do well. I'm a very competitive person, and so if anyone is keeping score, I like to win. That's just my nature. And the way I approach school is they were keeping score. And so if 0 was the bottom and 100 was the top, I wanted to score a 100 on everything. And so while I don't know that I just loved it, I did very well in school, mainly because I was somewhat scared of failure and I wanted to be successful. And I also had a mom and dad that required it, so it didn't accept anything less. So, yes, sir. I went to Florence High School, is where I graduated from high school. Florence at that time had 1 elementary school, 1 middle school. Actually, at that time, Florence had 1 elementary school, which was kindergarten through 6th, and 1 high school, which at that time was 7th through 12th. That community has grown significantly since then, and there's actually 3 elementary schools and a middle school and a high school. But the high school that I went to, which was old when I went there, is still the same high school as there today.
All right. We may cut it off right now. Let's sit here and ask. I think, hey, one thing I want you to take away from this, what did he say about trying to be the very best? When he said that he wanted to be at that 100 mark, didn't he? Champions do that, okay? And all of y'all are champions. That's what we preach here. Everybody sitting in here is a champion right now, okay? And every one of you have the same opportunities and the same, same abilities to grow up and become, just great people. And y'all will, because y'all are champions, okay? And I really want you to take that away today. Senator McMahan has something he wants to tell y'all too before he goes.
Hey guys, I'm Chad McMahan. I serve you as your state senator, and I'm your neighbor. I live at Guntown. How many of you know where Guntown is? Right down the road. Perfect. I want to also call out Representative Jerry Turner. He's also your neighbor. He lives here in Baldwyn. We serve you in your state capital because your parents voted for all of us. So we represent you. And I wanted to congratulate you. How many people like to be number 1? You are number 1. You are champions. You have the number 1 reading scores in the state of Mississippi. Out of all the children in the state of Mississippi, you are the champions because you read at a higher level than anybody else in the state. That's incredible. Give yourselves a hand. That's incredible. You can do it. You have value. What you believe is important. What you think is important. And I want to ask you a couple of questions. How many of you in here would like to grow up to be a teacher? Perfect. How many would like to grow up to be a policeman? How many would like to be a pilot? Yeah. Who would like to grow up and work at Toyota and make a lot of money making cars? That's incredible. Those are some of the best paying jobs. Who might want to be an attorney? Anybody? Anybody want to be a politician like these guys? See, I'm a public servant. These are politicians. But what I want to emphasize to you today is the most important thing you will learn in school is how to read. Because you cannot do anything else in life if you cannot read. You cannot be a pilot. You cannot work at Toyota. You can't be an attorney. You can't be a teacher. You cannot do anything unless you know how to read. It is up to you. These teachers and your parents will help you. They will help you learn to read, but it is the most important thing that you will learn in school because it will affect your entire lives. If I was going to give out $7,000, who would get in line for me to give you $7,000? Well, Representative Turner, myself, and the Lieutenant Governor, guess what? We gave you $7,000 this year. You're being paid to come to school. Every one of you are worth $7,000. And all you have to do is come to school. It's not free. We're paying for it. The taxpayers are paying for it. We put money aside for you to come to school. We're proud of you. We believe in you. You are important. You have self-worth. For most of you in here, the experts tell that this is amazing. I want you to listen to this very closely. For kindergarten to sixth graders, the experts tell us that by the time you graduate college, 60% of you will work in jobs that don't even exist today. Some of you will be pilots and you'll fly spaceships to the moon. Some of you will be pilots and will fly ships to Mars. One of you in here, one of you girls or one of you boys, you might have the cure for cancer. You're going to be a doctor. That's incredible. Someone in here, you're going to discover a vaccine that's going to cure us of all diseases. You can do it. Learn to read. Be proud. Hold your head up high. Be proud of who you are. I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. We're here to help you. Give yourselves a hand. Champions. Champions in life know how to read. You can do it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. You won't believe this. My colleagues won't believe it, but when I was born, I had a speech impediment. I couldn't speak. But my parents said that in spite of that, they got me lessons and taught me how to speak. I thought to put and talk. Seriously. You can do it. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't do it because you're black or white or yellow or that you're a man or a woman. You can do it. Learn to read and read everything you can, and you can be anything you want to be in life. How many of you believe that? I believe in you. I believe in you. All right, guys, let's go.
All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to your teachers. They're going to get y'all out by rows.
And by the way, y'all are really good sitting in here. Thank y'all very much. It speaks very highly of you and your teachers, so thank y'all.